In India, yoga has a meditative and spiritual core, the ultimate goal being moksha, or liberation. But in the West, it's much more associated with exercise and very, very stretchy pants, which feels like we might be missing the point. But when you've mastered yoga on land, why not take your practice onto the water? Impressive stuff. Do it well and you too can find spiritual balance. Although I think all she's found is how many leeches live in that lake. That's what the leeches think too. Combining exercise with spirituality, stand-up paddleboard yoga is gaining popularity with the millennial crowd. So, fix up your man bun, put away your healing crystals, and get ready for some proper science. Doing a typical headstand, our man needs to create static equilibrium. He does this by maintaining body tension and keeping his centre of mass within his base of support. This is much harder on water, where the board's ability to move means he has to deal with an ever-shifting centre of mass. If our man's dry, he'll have plenty of friction between his body and the board. But there's no friction between the board and the water, so if he applies any horizontal forces, it will slide away from him. It sounds hard to stay dry with this one, so let's start slowly. Step 1. Be wary of applying horizontal forces, or you will look a lot less zen and a lot more stupid. As this lady launches herself forward, her moving centre of mass combined with the lack of friction between board and water means it moves backwards while she learns to move more slowly. Like these two, unhurried, deliberate movements so as to not push their boards in the opposite direction. Barely a ripple. These two have that mastered. But they still need to work on everything else. When these yogis lift a leg, their centres of mass are no longer directly over their bases of support, so their boards slide out from under them. I wonder if this would work with a surfboard. Let's see. No, it wouldn't. A surfboard is less buoyant than a paddleboard, and pushing it underwater is like loading a spring. As he leans, he applies a horizontal force to the board, so he falls one way, and it fires out the other, quite painfully. So that's water yoga, a quick way to realign your chakras. If, like me, you know your ancient Japanese weapons, then you'll know all about bow staffs, or bojutsu. Technically difficult, visually impressive. They're a firm favourite in action movies.
Got it? Yep. Action.
No matter what the budget. Even very, very cheap ones. The bow staff gained popularity in 15th century Japan when weapons were banned under the Shou dynasty. But people were allowed staffs to help them carry water. The history is interesting, but not as interesting as the science. As our martial artist spins his bow, its constant angular velocity translates into different linear velocities at different parts of the stick. The very ends of the staff have to travel the furthest, so they travel fastest, giving them lots of momentum and kinetic energy. You do need to have an awareness of the staff's plane of rotation, and quickly changing it by moving his hands across his body is especially tricky. That sounds hard, which is why I'm going to leave this one to our amateur scientists. Yep, you're going to feel that tomorrow. Although mainly in the jaw.
I got that on video.
When his shoulder gets tired, his arm drops slightly, and the staff's new plane of rotation passes right through where his face is.
Alrighty.
Now, Now she's got it mastered. Maybe this is a bit simpler than it seems. Yeah, maybe not. Very quick rotations means that the end of her bow staff was travelling at around 50 miles an hour. That's as fast as a bolting gazelle. And about as damaging to have in your lounge. Still, she looks more professional than this guy.
What's the wine?
Who seems to be using half of his mum's mop. That's bow staffs. They take years to master. Really doesn't seem worth it, does it?